So yeah, I'm Mackenzie, very excited to be here with you all today. I'm going to walk you through a bit of just my path from high school, which is I guess the equivalent of you all secondary school, to where I'm at now by finishing up my PhD and moving into my career. So I'm 26 years old. I grew up in Seattle, Washington, which the photo of the mountain is where I am from. It's a very beautiful place. It's also the home of Starbucks, Microsoft, and Amazon, if you've heard of one of those companies. And I moved to London in 2020 for my PhD, so I'm now a Londoner. I do live here. And I enjoy, like many of you, I'm sure, plenty of things, running. I also Irish dance, I swim, big fan of dogs, and very much enjoy the musicals and everything, musicals and concerts that go on in London. So my introduction to computer science was in high school. So when I was back home in Seattle, Washington, and it was actually inspired by one of my maths teachers. So he recommended to my parents that I might like computer science. My parents then relayed this information to me. I had no idea what computer science was. I figured it had something to do with technology, but I said, okay, I'll give it a go. I like this teacher. I like solving puzzles, problem solving, etc. So I gave it a go. And turns out I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, and I also loved that you could do so much with it. You could really apply it to all different sorts of disciplines. So if you're interested in medicine, you could do computer science in medicine. If you're interested in human rights, you could do that as well. If you're interested in law, et cetera, et cetera. And at my high school, it was quite unique because it was an all-women environment. And so we learned that there was this thing called the gender gap in technology, but we didn't actually experience it in our school. But the first time that we did actually see it was when we went to Microsoft headquarters, and we saw that the majority of the software developers were men. That just kind of highlighted the gender gap for me and my classmates firsthand for the first time. And within my high school career, a big part of it was volunteering and serving one's community. So me and one of my fellow classmates started a nonprofit called Women Advancing Tomorrow's Technologists. And this is a nonprofit that teaches coding to young girls and boys around the Seattle area, just to start to work on that gender gap. And this and some of the other work that I did led to me getting this NC Wet Computing Award in 2016 when I was a senior, so a final year in high school. This is the National Center for Women in Information Technology. But then moving forward to my undergrad, so my bachelor's, I ended up getting a bachelor's of science. So I majored in computer science and I minored in philosophy. And in the first year, while I was at Villanova University, which is just outside of Philadelphia on the east coast of the US, I tried out research for the first time. I really only thought about research as something, you're wearing lab coats and you're dealing with chemicals or things, so very much from a more medical chemistry, sort of physical science point of view. But it was really cool to realize that, actually with computer science, you can do it anywhere in the world. And so I had my first research internship in Boston that summer, which I very much enjoyed. And you can also collaborate with people all over. And if you can run something on your device, somebody else can run something on theirs, and it can just lead to a lot of great ideas coming out of that, and really exciting research and change. And the second year of my bachelor's, I started to get interested in machine learning, which a lot of you might think of as AI currently. It could be large language models, these sorts of tools, so like ChatGPT, Claude, Llama, these sorts of things. And at the time, classification systems were very much all the rage. So we give a model a bunch of different data, and then we want the model to output a decision. Could be 0 or 1. That could say, let's give this person a loan, let's not give this person a loan. It could be, is this a cat? Is this a dog? Et cetera, et cetera. But one interesting thing that was really being pointed out around this time in my second year of my undergrad was that there are all these AI systems out in the world, and actually they have a lot of issues. Oftentimes they struggle to see, for instance, people of color with facial recognition technologies. And so this just kind of really brought me to the understanding that tech really isn't neutral. and that there is a lot more to it, and we really need to be careful about how we're deploying it, how we're testing it, how we're building it across the whole life cycle of these technologies. And then that summer, I completed a research internship in Germany. And with that one, I was working on getting two AI to communicate and to coordinate to solve a puzzle game. And then the third year, I ended up actually coming here to the United Kingdom. So I studied at Oxford for a year, doing computer science and philosophy. And then after that, I ended up doing another research internship, but this time on hate speech detection in English and German on Twitter. So that was very interesting. And essentially, all of these different research internships and a bunch of the courses I took really did make me realize that I'm not done learning and that I wanted to keep studying and being a student. But the beauty of going to grad school for your PhD is you actually get paid to go to school, and you actually get paid to learn and contribute to the field that you're in. So then for my final year of undergrad, I was really chugging out a bunch of different grad school applications. I was deciding between, do I stay in the US, do I move to the United Kingdom? Lo and behold, I'm here in front of you. I did decide to come here, and I am staying. So I'm very glad that I ended up deciding to come to King's. I did decide pre-knowing COVID was a thing, so that was interesting, realizing what my first year was going to be like. But it was still worth it to move in October of that year. And I was very glad that I could really bridge all these sorts of disciplines for my PhD. So it was my AI interest, my interest in philosophy and ethics, and social justice and human rights. So that was really important to me to be able to do that for my studies. So now, I ended up at King's. This is one of my favorite views, just from upstairs. Looking out at London. Just wanted to give a shout out to my advisors. So when you do a PhD, it is very much independent work, but the beauty of it is you can have collaborators, and your advisors are very much with you at every step of the way. And just a little insight into the kinds of questions that I was looking at when I was doing my PhD here. Those classification systems I mentioned before, those were the kind of AI and machine learning systems I was investigating. And so I was trying to think about, okay, if these systems are going to be biased, how can we actually try to mitigate that bias? And how can we ensure that when we are using these methods that we aren't accidentally exacerbating harm or exacerbating bias? And then how can we make sure that these models actually abide by the Equality Act, which is the UK's non-discrimination law? And while I was here, I also got the chance to do some work in tech policy, which was something that I've been really interested in. And I worked at the Department for Science, Innovation and Tech, just down the road at Whitehall for a good 6 months period. And this past December is when I finally submitted my thesis, which was a 165-page document. And only a few people, I think, in the world will ever have read this document. But that's A-okay. That's kind of all you need. And it was the culmination of essentially 4 years of research. So that includes research papers that I had written from my first year to my last year. So it's just summing everything up into a nice narrative, into a nice piece. And thinking about what I could kind of tell myself back Mackenzie in 2020, one thing is it's really okay to not know what you're doing. As a researcher, actually, if you're really uncertain or if you really are unsure about what's happening, it probably means you're getting to something novel and into something new. And so that's where a lot of interesting questions and answers to problems can really arise. And I think also just getting comfortable with that process was a big challenge. And in March of 2025, I successfully defended my thesis, which is when I sat down with one of my supervisors and then 2 examiners. And then there was an oral exam. So they had read the thesis, and then the examiners asked me questions about it. So you might be wondering, what am I doing now? Why am I still here at King's? One thing is I very much loved being here, love this institution. So happy to come and talk to you guys today. But I'm currently up at the Alan Turing Institute, which is just up by King's Cross at the British Library. If any of you have been, it's a beautiful place. And there, again, I'm able to collaborate with some fantastic people, Umang, Adrian, Kendall, Arena, and Holly. And some of these folks are in Cambridge, some are in New York. So again, it kind of just shows the international collaborative nature of research. And post the Turing Institute, and I guess I can tell you a little bit about what I'm doing there, is just asking questions around how are AI practitioners actually adding in guardrails on top of their technologies and AI systems, and what does this look like? How can we ensure that when we're deploying our systems, they're actually ethical and they're actually safe? And also looking at those legal consequences as well. So if you've heard of one of the buzzwords, AI governance, human oversight, but really just AI safety is what we focus on. But this August, the current project that I'm on actually finishes. It's EU funded, and that's been great, but usually these things do have an end date. So I will be starting up as a researcher at Northumbria University in Newcastle. I'll remain, though, in London, but work remotely and travel when needed. And at this role, what I'll be working on is large language models and generative AI. So it could be AI models that are generating images or text or multi-model, so they can do both and take in both. But I will specifically be working with law enforcement and the judiciary, which is going to be very interesting to help them actually use these models more responsibly. So that's what I will be doing starting this August and up until March 2025. No, March 2028. Good God, we've passed March 2025. But past that, I'm not entirely sure what exactly I'll be doing. I might stay in academia, but I also might continue doing research, but in industry. There's also a lot going on, though, in the tech policy sphere with AI. So there's a lot of different opportunities that I can go into. But right now, I'm enjoying doing research, so I'm going to keep doing that until I decide to make a shift. And so now you have a bit of an idea of kind of my career path, a bit of an idea of what I'm doing at the Turing, what I've done in my PhD. And one thing that I've really enjoyed, which I started at my PhD, was some volunteer research that I've done. So there's this fantastic group called EMO Bridges. It's a multinational institutional group of researchers around the world. And we work on research that involves tech that disproportionately affects marginalized communities around the globe. So one of the groups within EMO Bridges is conversations with practitioners. And what we did is we would interview practitioners about the work that they do and kind of try to figure out if there are academic questions or academic problems that we could actually help them with their work and practice. So we would end up writing blog posts about the interviews that we had with these practitioners and kind of disseminate those after. But this past fall, we decided that we wanted to change things up. We wanted to actually work with one NGO, one organization. So what we ended up doing was working with CHEN, which is a gender-based violence tech-based NGO. They're actually based in the United Kingdom. I recommend checking them out. They're a fantastic NGO. And they have plenty of fantastic resources for people. So one of them is Bloom, and Bloom is a great resource. They actually worked with Bumble for a bit as well through Bloom. But the idea is that people can come to their website and use these resources, and Bloom is one of the ones that provides people with mental health support and with healing exercises as well. And these are just a few of the other tools, but if you go and check them out, they have plenty more online. And the beauty of CHEN is that they're UK-based, but they have staff all over the world, and they have a user base that is also worldwide. So they try to have their resources in all different sorts of languages. And when we started working with CHEN through this volunteer research project, they were thinking about what is feminist AI? Is feminist AI even feasible? And it was fascinating because a bunch of different people had very different responses to this. Sometimes the staff thought that if the use case was feminist, so if it was, let's say, supporting or uplifting marginalized communities, then we could argue it's feminist AI. Or others thought, well, if we try to ingrain feminist principles, let's say like inclusivity, feminist or accessibility sort of needs into our AI design, then it's feminist. So there are a lot of different ideas being thrown around. I think the answer to that question is there isn't one answer, but so we're still kind of figuring that one out. But then Chen is pretty unique in the sense that whatever tools and tech that they're building, they have to make sure that they're infusing that with their trauma-informed design principles, which you can see up here on the slides. So these are things like safety, plurality, power sharing, hope, privacy. And for them, they were trying to think about how can we put these into an artificial intelligence. So now, after we had some initial discussions with Chen about what is feminist AI, what is needed, what's necessary, we ended up building out 3 different projects with them. So one of them is actually a more data analysis project. So with this project, we are analyzing over 10,000 free responses from survivors around the globe. And the topic is the healing that these survivors are hoping to get out of using Bloom, which is one of those platforms I mentioned. And then the second piece is we're hoping to develop a framework for Chen to actually implement their principles. Because it's one thing for an organization to say, yes, we have these principles. We want to bring these into our technology. We want them to really be fleshed out. But it's another thing to think about, okay, if I'm a coder, what does that mean in practice? And so that's where we're hoping to actually help them out more with the design and implementation piece for their generative AI tools specifically. And then we're also helping them in the actual development of a large language model, LLM, advocacy letter writer for survivors. So currently they have a beta version of this where users can plug in if they want to have an image takedown post, essentially, from could be Meta, could be Instagram, or Twitter, and they plug in their details, and then the AI outputs a letter that they can submit to that service to then take down an image. So that's just one example of AI that they've used, but in the past, they actually did have a chatbot. They had it running for about 2 years, but then I think it was in 2020, they decided to take it down. So that just kind of shows that Chen is also just very aware of kind of like the harm that AI can also do. And when certain lines are crossed, they choose to actually take down the technology and are trying to figure out now how to build better technology as well. So I will finish off now before some questions with just some tips for you all. They aren't too crazy. The first is to find good mentors. I was very lucky that in high school and at university, I had fantastic mentors who really kind of propelled me towards 1, computer science, and then 2, research. And I found out that I really did enjoy those things. But regardless of if I liked it or not, it would have helped me understand what I did actually like. So that is the beauty of trying new things, even if you don't really know what you're doing along the way. And I would also recommend like internships, especially over the summers, are also a great opportunity to see if you like something. And if you are interested in computer science and research, those 2 things go very well together. So if that's something that you're hoping to do in the future, I would highly recommend that, and finding people who you are interested in working with as well, and whose are people that you admire to work with. But last but not least, I will just say I hope that you all keep asking critical questions of technology, and I am excited to hear your guys' questions. So thank you very much.